Hello. So I will just introduce you really quickly. So Geoff Ginter joins us from Voter Choice New Jersey to talk to us about ranked choice voting as an option for election reform. So Ginter went viral in 2017 for speaking up for progressives against New Jersey Republican Congressman Tom MacArthur. He also serves as a medical professional who organizes for mutual aid to sustain a successful general strike. He is a fierce advocate for single-payer healthcare and truth in economics through modern monetary theory, or MMT, amongst many other progressive issues.
That's pretty much it. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. Boom. Okay, so I want to move this down there. Just that. Maybe like that. Okay, can everyone just see the screen?
It looks good,
okay.
Geoff.
Fantastic. Okay. All right. So moving on. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Geoff Ginter. I'm here on behalf of Voter Choice New Jersey. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to providing information about ranked choice voting and promoting its adoption for all elections in New Jersey. First, I'd like to talk about the specific flaws in our current voting system. You're going to see how this system elects divisive candidates without earning majority support, leading many Americans to feel their vote doesn't count. We'll talk about how our current system shuts out third parties and candidates who have great ideas, which leaves voters to feel like they don't have any legitimate or meaningful candidates to choose from at the ballot box. Then I'll talk about the benefits of ranked choice voting, how it empowers voters to vote for their preferred candidate without fear of wasting their vote on a candidate who isn't a predicted frontrunner. We'll cover how ranked choice voting makes elections more civil during campaigns, more fair by encouraging the participation of more candidates and third parties in elections, and more representative by ensuring that all voters' choices are heard. Next, I'll show you how ranked choice voting works, and you'll see how simple it is in practice. Last, I'll talk about the growing ranked choice voting movement, and you'll understand that ranked choice voting isn't a new fad, but a centuries-old voting method that's been used in the US and worldwide, embraced by third parties, independent parties, Republicans, and Democrats alike. So let's talk about the problems with our current voting system. The way most elections work in the United States today and in our state of New Jersey is plurality voting. It's when a voter only gets to vote for one candidate, and the candidate who earns the largest portion of votes, or a plurality, is the winner. When there are only two candidates on the ballot, it's fairly straightforward to determine which candidate had the majority support from the voters and won the election. However, the plurality voting method breaks down when there are more than two candidates in a race. When there are three or more candidates in a single winner race, plurality voting method breaks down, especially when two of these candidates are similar to one another, like candidate B and candidate C here in our slide. Voters who like the purple party are now forced to divide their support among these two similar candidates. This is called vote splitting. When candidate C enters the race, 1/4 of the voters who would have voted for candidate B when it was just A and B actually prefer candidate C more. But because they split the vote and each candidate receives less of an overall distribution of votes, candidate C is dubbed the degrading term of spoiler. Candidate A, representing the Orange Party, benefits from the split votes in the Purple Party and wins the election with a plurality, but not a majority of the votes. A candidate who enters the race, but who does not win, should not be able to sway the outcome of an election. To avoid a bad outcome, voters may engage in strategic voting and support the predicted frontrunner who isn't a favorite candidate in order to prevent wasting their vote and inadvertently elect their least favorite candidate. The problem is that trying to determine which of the similar candidates is likely to perform better is based on public opinion polls, which can be wrong or contradict our individual candidate preferences. On the other side of the coin, If your favorite candidate is one of the frontrunners, you hope that a similar candidate won't split their vote and hurt their chances. This is a lose-lose situation. Our voting method should unite rather than divide common interests. These are two textbook examples of the spoiler effect and how elections can be swayed when there are a range of candidates on the ballot. In the 1992 US general election, Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush were frontrunners. Ross Perot was considered a spoiler candidate who split votes away from Bush Sr. and to Bill Clinton's benefit. Without Perot's participation, it's possible that Bush Sr. would have been reelected. It's also possible that without the notion of strategic voting and wasted votes, more voters in general would have supported Perot, a signal to public opinion that the independent party was a viable party. The 2000 general election is a good example of how even a little support for third-party candidates can have major impact on election outcomes for frontrunners and voters. Here, Bush and Gore were virtually tied, each earning 49% of the vote. Green Party candidate Ralph Nader had only 1.5% of the vote, but it could have been enough to split votes from Gore and sway the election in Bush's favor. Without Nader present, Gore might have won. As Americans, we pride ourselves on free and fair elections, but we've seen how plurality voting is a broken system that undermines our democracy. Now, the good news is that ranked choice voting is a simple improvement to the way we vote that empowers voters to vote for their preferred candidates, encourage the participation of more candidates and third parties in elections to level the playing field, and is more representative by ensuring that all voters' voices are heard. So the solution, we feel, is ranked choice voting. Rather than choosing one candidate with ranked choice voting, you can rank candidates in the order you prefer them: first choice, second choice, third choice, and so on. If your first choice can't win, your vote instantly counts towards your backup choices. With ranked choice voting, your vote stays in play until one candidate wins with a majority, or over 50% of the votes. Now here's a sample ranked choice voting ballot. The great thing about ranked choice voting is that you can rank as many or as little candidates as you like. We like to say that your first choice is the candidate you love. Your second choice is the candidate you like, and the third choice is the one you can tolerate. Now, what does counting votes in ranked choice voting look like? Here's a hypothetical ranked choice voting election with 4 people running for the same seat. We begin by counting only voters' first choices, then check for a majority winner. And we see that candidate A has 55% of the votes, which is clearly a majority. So that makes candidate A the winner in round 1. But what if there is no clear majority? And this is more often the case in our elections today. So here's another example of a different election where nobody has over 50% of the votes in round 1. So now what happens? We have round 2 of vote counting, and we eliminate the candidate with the lowest share of votes. In this case, candidate D. Now, the important distinction with ranked choice voting is that the voters who selected candidate D are not eliminated. They get to have their second choices counted, after which we see that there's still no majority. So we do another round, repeating the same steps as before. This time, candidate C is in last place and is eliminated, and candidate C's second choice and candidate D's third choices are transferred to another candidate. Now we see that candidate B has a majority with 55%, so they are the winner. It's easy as that. Notice that with plurality voting, the bright orange candidate would have been elected in round 1 with 40% of the vote. But the voters in this district preferred the policies of the purple candidates. With ranked choice voting, you have better group unity in the decision-making process. Now, Numerous studies have shown that ranked choice voting can increase campaign civility in today's hyperpartisan elections. Rutgers Elections Institute of Politics polled California voters in 2013 and 2014 to find that voters were more satisfied with the conduct of candidate campaigns and perceived less candidate criticism and negative campaigning compared to voters in non-ranked choice voting cities. This poll included a representative sample of both Republican, Democratic, and unaffiliated voters. Ranked choice voting changes candidates' election strategies with the majority needed to win threshold. My apologies. Ranked choice voting encourages more civil discourse between candidates because candidates campaign not only for their first choice support, but also the second choice support of other candidates. Consequently, candidates need to appeal to a broader range of voters in order to win. Candidates have less incentive to make negative statements about their opponents because they risk alienating that opponent's supporters. While canvassing, instead of passing by the house with a lawn sign out front endorsing another candidate, you can say, hey, I see you're voting for my opponent in this race. That's great. Here's the areas where we agree on. Here's where we have consensus. Even if I can't get your first choice vote, can I get your second choice vote? The incentives are completely reversed. Studies find that electoral outcomes for women and people of color are overall better in jurisdictions that have implemented ranked choice voting. Election data collected from 9 US cities show that on average, women's representation doubled after ranked choice voting was implemented, with nearly half of city council seats held by women, up from 23% in the election just before ranked choice voting. A study in California found a 19 percentage point increase in people of color elected to city council after cities adopted ranked choice voting, compared with only a 3% point increase during the same time period in plurality cities. Now, you may wonder why ranked choice voting may benefit women and people of color. Well, it discourages negative campaigning, reducing the risk of racially charged or gendered attacks. It could remove preliminary elections, which are low turnout and often underrepresented. And it avoids vote splitting, so multiple candidates with similar bases can run. It empowers voters to express their true preferences for multiple candidates so we don't have to worry about voting for someone we don't really like. It promotes majority support, so we know that our representatives really represent the will of the people. It minimizes the spoiler effect and vote splitting, so we don't have to worry about candidates drawing votes away from our favorite. It increases campaign civility, so we don't have to suffer hearing negative messages. And it increases candidate party representation so that we can benefit from new and different public policy ideas. Ranked choice voting isn't some new fad. It's been used nationally in the US and worldwide, embraced by Republicans, Democrats, and third parties alike. And it's worked, which is why support for ranked choice voting is growing. Maine was the first state to use ranked choice voting on a statewide level in 2018. And they did so again in 2020 for the presidential, US House, and Senate races. Ranked choice voting is also currently used in over 20 cities and many universities and organizations' elections. It is also used in numerous national, state, and local government elections around the world. Australia and Iceland, as an example, have been using it for over a century. So what are we asking people? We want you to sign up as a Voter Choice New Jersey volunteer or supporter. We want you to share this kind of information on your social media. We want you to make calls. We want you to get involved. We want you to get people, at the very least, talking about this. Most people in New Jersey don't really have an idea about what this is, and that needs to change. If you don't know there's an alternative, then you don't fight for an alternative. So right now, we're building a movement from the ground up. We're not looking to elected officials to just suddenly wake up one day and realize that this is a good idea. We know that's not going to happen. We are looking to get people, regular people, activated on the ground, learning about this, seeing the benefits of it, and then acting on that information and demanding that their elected officials sign this into law to make it possible. And that is that. Gotta unshare my screen. I gotta do it this way, I think. There we go, stop share. There we go. And that's that. That's my presentation. Any questions? The sounds of silence.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a question. First of all, thanks, for your presentation. Definitely appreciate your time and sharing information. I've been wanting to go to like one of the voter choice NJ meetings for a while, but they're always on like Sundays, and I always have other meetings. So I'm glad I finally get to see this presentation. But yeah, I mean, something else I've heard in addition to ranked choice voting is there, our alternative voting system too. And I guess my question is, in general, not too specific, but like, what are the other systems, and I guess what makes ranked choice voting, the best one?
I would sidestep that question entirely and say that anything that we can do is better than what we have right now. It's to me, that's setting up a fight that doesn't need to occur. If we can get off plurality voting, we're going to be better off than we were. So I'm not here to say ranked choice voting is better than something else. I'm saying that everything else that's out there is better than plurality voting. So you can't make a mistake in choosing something else. I think at the very least, if we were having a conversation about the fact that plurality voting doesn't work, doesn't really matter what one you're advocating for, that's a conversation worth having. That is a topic that we should have in our state houses, in our living rooms. Plurality voting does not work. But more specifically, if you're an oligarch, it works very well. If you are rich, it works very well. If you're already in power, it works very well, because the system demands that stay the same. If we want actual change, and I think we can all agree, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's climate, pick a topic. We need change, not marginal change, not small tinkering around the margins. No, we need actual structural systemic change on all fronts. And that's only going to happen in one of two ways, preferably both. Massive movements from the ground up. Even ranked choice voting New Jersey understands that the state houses are not going to do this on their own. They're not going to do it until the local municipalities do it. And the local municipalities are not going to do it until the people demand it. So it has to be a movement from the ground up. That means no more being civil. Civil means you've earned it. And the way that our power elites have conducted themselves and the outcomes that we have got should make it very clear to anyone that they no longer have earned civility. We are dying. This is not hyperbole. So we need to demand it in ways that make sure they know we mean business. No more sternly worded letter campaigns. They know they can ignore that. No more marches if that's the only thing we do. March and make some noise and then go home and nothing happens for weeks or months or years. Got our frustrations out, now let's go home and suffer in silence. No more of that. No more. If we want actual change, it's going to have to happen from the ground up, and it's going to have to be loud. It's going to have to be sustained. It's going to have to be in ways that make sure they know this is different. We got to go back to the suffragettes, the labor movements, the civil rights movement. It's going to have to be like that. So I'm not really here to advocate for, I am here to advocate for ranked choice voting. I'm not here to say that one is better than the other. I'm saying it's all better than plurality voting. Plurality voting keeps us down. Any other alternative to that keeps us up. So the only way we're going to get change on climate, education, healthcare, you name it, is with strong pressure campaigns from the ground up. Long, sustained. I'm talking mutual aid. I'm talking general strike. That will help us to get ranked choice voting or some alternative, which means once we have got the concessions that we need from our elected officials, ranked choice voting will make it easier to sustain that and continue that. But so now what change you're looking for, It's going to start with you and me and everyone else. We need, as they said in the beginning of this meeting, thousands of people, millions of people. There can't be any choice. We have to give them no choice. They either change or they're done, one way or the other. So that's how I would answer that question. It doesn't matter what you fight for, as long as you fight and fight like you mean it. Anyone else?
Jeffrey, can you hear me?
Faintly.
Okay, my name is Joe Gralick. I'm listening in. I'm part of the Zoom meeting here. Thank you for presenting this to me. I've seen other states with it, and quite frankly, I've always had a negative opinion about it. But I think that you presented a really good case.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, basically, what kind of I guess the program will continue to show us methods that you suggest that we can use to advance the program of RCV. So I'd like to understand where I can find some materials to offer, to grow from and to offer to others. And are we going to, at one point, I would suggest that we'd be able to meet on occasion through this Zoom process, possibly to share our experiences with trying to advance the program, and maybe share approaches and ideas that we have, so that we all grow and get stronger with this approach.
100%. Right now in New Jersey, the movement for ranked choice voting is one of education. Because again, if you don't know there's an alternative, you don't fight for it. So we need more people to be aware. So we need to get more meetings like this, and we need to get people who can't come to a meeting to see a video, of a presentation like this. We need more education. We need more people aware. That's step one. Once we get more people aware, then we can start to put the pressure I talked about on our local officials. We don't necessarily need ranked choice voting, statewide. If we can get those municipalities that are legally able to give us ranked choice voting a shot at doing it, and we're on track to getting that done in Hoboken right now. So right now it's a question of getting people aware and making whatever movements we can in whatever municipalities we can to get them to adopt it, to get them to accept it, to get more voters used to it. And again, once more people get aware of it, I think more people are going to start fighting for it, because most of the municipalities, there are some legal hurdles to get over to introduce ranked choice voting. And that's why we do need legislation passed in the state houses. But that's not going to happen until there's enough power in the movement underneath them to force them, to give them no other alternative. Understood. And that's what I advocate for in any activism you engage in. We're never going to convince elected officials. They're not there to be convinced. That's not their job. They don't actually work for you. That's the visage. That's the mirage. They're there to make sure that nothing actually changes, no matter what they say. Never trust them. Never. Our job is to give them no other alternative. Because from my perspective, politicians only respond to pressure. And right now, corporate interests are the only ones who show up all day, every day, unrelenting, completely reliable. They will always be there. That's where the pressure comes from. And that's where we get the results that we see every day that affect people's lives in a very negative way. So if we want to change that, we have to build a movement that can match and beat that pressure. Give them no choice. Give them no alternative other than to do what we need them to do. That's the way it worked from the middle of the 1800s all the way to the middle of the 1900s. And it all fell apart when we lost touch with what it took to make real change in this country. So we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to get comfortable with being uncivil with those people who don't deserve civility anymore. We can be civil with one another, but civility with candidates, civility with political parties, fealty to political parties, that's a losing proposition. You lose every time, every time. So my recommendation is, you know, you want to have your organization talk to our organization. That's perfect. That's wonderful. I can. Herb is here as well. He's, you know, higher up in the organization than I am. He can give you all kinds of information about who to talk to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we can continue the conversation about what to do. Like I said, right now in the campaign, it's all about education, and we're looking to build enough education so we can start the campaign of pressure.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Joe. Anything else?
Yeah, I have another question. So,
sure.
You know, in terms of the phase of the campaign, we're in the education component right now. So once we move past that, I guess, is the strategy to have folks try to have local ordinances introduced? Is it like a ballot and, you know, strategy?
Yes, you know, for, like I said, there are some legal things, and maybe Herb can speak better about this than I can. There are legal hurdles in a lot of municipalities that prevent them from adopting ranked choice voting on their own. So in those municipalities that don't have that legal barrier, that's where the pressure starts. You know, get it done there, like we're doing right now in Hoboken. Get as many municipalities that don't have statewide legal restrictions. You know, they can choose however they want to do their business. Let's get them first. Then once we do that, then the idea is that we should have enough of a power base with enough of a population that is now used to ranked choice voting, because that's how we do it in our town, and it works. You know, I actually feel like my vote counts. I actually feel like I can go out and vote, you know, because I don't have to vote for this idiot or that idiot. I can vote for this. Yes, sir.
Let me just jump in though, right? Actually, we need in the state enabling legislation statewide. We believe there aren't currently any towns that can enact it on their own.
I thought Hoboken was one. I thought.
Well, no, what they're passing is called a trigger ordinance, meaning.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right, but there are a set of nonpartisan towns. There's 88 nonpartisan towns. Some of them have runoff elections right now, and we're focusing more on those towns. And Hoboken is one of those towns. But we still need state enabling legislation at all levels. But there is, as you said, though, there is a difference legally among the different municipalities in New Jersey, because there's about 6 or 7 different ways that municipal charters that towns can choose, you know, how they're organized. But I think there's 88 towns that have nonpartisan municipal elections right now. So we look at those as the first targets, not the only targets, but, you know, more the low-hanging fruit. So just to clarify, we need
so just basically getting local municipalities involved. But again, that doesn't happen just because you sent in a petition. Petitions don't work. You know, there needs to be something more powerful happening. You need to get people involved in a very tangible way.
In Hoboken, we had some strong support on the city council, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
And then, you know, other towns were looking for activists who have you know, influence on the city councils to help us introduce the legislation at the municipal level. And we're confident. I mean, this whole way of going, you know, through the municipalities has shown to work. I mean, I think it worked a lot with like the Fight for 15 and the Medicare for All folks. I think they're up to 12 municipalities now that have endorsed Medicare for All. So we're confident that we can get some traction. And now that Andrew Zwicker is elected to the Senate, we have someone in the Senate as well as the House to sponsor bills for us. So we're confident. I mean, something has to give in this system. I mean, obviously, we can't. It's not sustainable. What we currently have is not sustainable.
Anything else? Okay, well, I got to get back to my family. Herb, if you wouldn't mind handing over to Joe information for Sunday's meetings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So we can keep the conversation going between groups and just spread the word. You know, anything is better than plurality voting. Anything. You know, I personally prefer voter choice New Jersey, ranked choice voting, but to me, that's not the point. As long as we are all on the same page that plurality voting has to go. It's a dead end.